Hello, this is Rhett, and this is Power Lunch on LinkedIn Live. We're going to be doing this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're going to try to do it around 12 o'clock every day. Sometimes because of technology, schedules, it gets pushed a little bit. This interview that I have this afternoon was supposed to be yesterday, but I had some technical problems and couldn't pull it off. And so my guest today graciously agreed to come back and talk again. So I do appreciate that. But this show is really about talking to today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, CEOs, and just downright good people who are doing good things in the world and that we can learn from. The fun part is that it is interactive, so please do engage and ask questions or make comments. We'll try to get to those answers during the show or after the show. This is being simulcast on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with the help of Social Live's new platform. And again, this show is about learning from the best. And today I've got one of the best out there, Walker Deibel. He is co-founder of 3 startups, and he's acquired multiple companies. I think it's up to 7 now. He's a certified M&A advisor. He's a stockbroker, a film producer who's had films at Sundance and at South by Southwest. And his new book, which is really why we're here today, is Buy Then Build: How Acquisition Entrepreneurs Outsmart the Startup Game. Walker, welcome to the show.
Rhett, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to really talk yesterday, but you know, I as I was reading the book, I was fascinated by the premise because I initially, when I bought my first company, we'd been looking to start something, and we weren't thinking about buying, but that ended up being the way we went, and I think it was the best way. So your book kind of hit home to me. But why build versus buy? What is that? You started. I'll premise it by saying you came out of grad school, started a company that failed right before you finished, and then you were sort of in this limbo. How did you get to the premise that you should buy versus start?
Okay. Let me start with a little bit of the first question, and I'll jump into the story a little bit. So if the big question is, why buy versus build, I think that's actually it could be worded a little better, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, acquisition entrepreneurship is I just buy a business and it's already going and I don't even have to do the entrepreneurship part. It's actually not true at all. That's why the book's called Buy Then Build, as opposed to starting from scratch, right? Like you're always building, we're always being entrepreneurial. We're always trying to take the company to the next level, whether you start at 0 or 10% or 80, right? It's just who we are. So, there's a lot of benefits to buying rather than starting from scratch. We'll sort of, navigate through a lot of them, but at the highest level, it's going to be that there's already an existing infrastructure in place. There's already a profitable company in place that you can buy based on historical earnings rather than raise capital according to a future projection, right? So it's grounded in historical performance, and therefore also generates a positive ROI from a financial perspective. From an entrepreneurship perspective, you sort of skip the startup phase and all of the landmines that lay there waiting for you. Let me jump right into what you're hitting on. The first, the best part of being an MBA student is that it's a very well disguised startup accelerator, right? Like we all know that startups fail, and it's okay to go out and start a business and fail, and it's just such a brilliant time to do it when you're a student. Okay, so we had licensed what is today known as Real 3D. Okay, I'm actually uncertain if it's the same exact company, but when you go to the movie theater, you put on the glasses, you see the 3D movie.
Right.
We had a lenticular lens that we were putting over flat screen televisions back in 2003 and we had the licensing rights for point of purchase advertising, right?
Right. So
The
you're talking about instant retail. Right.
That's right. Yeah, retail. So we were talking. We were deep in conversations with a couple of major retailers. Okay, nationwide retailers. We were in a business plan competition. We were finalists. We were going to win a little money. We were pitching to investors and had a lot of momentum. The company we were licensing from never said it like this, but I half suspect that they were like, let's go ahead and give this technology to James Cameron and go make Avatar and pull it from Walker and his little group of friends in the Midwest.
They may never get enough capital to really do this, right?
That's right. So after about a little less than 9 months of work, and I mean, I put myself in the hospital. We were working so hard on this thing, no kidding. In a moment, the whole thing kind of unraveled, and it was the day before they announced the winner of the business plan competition, and luckily we came in second, because if we actually had gotten the check, it would have just it would have been totally I would have probably we would have returned it, I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, what could you have done, right?
That's right. So since we had so much momentum, I really didn't do what most MBAs do, and that's plan on employment following graduation. So I was in a class of 180 students or so at WashU, and I think I was the only one without a job lined up, right? So
I was going to say that class probably had full employment, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yeah, everyone except me, right? Which then made it harder for me because. But Rhett, that's when I discovered that entrepreneurship isn't really about it's not a job. It's really a state of being. Right? Because I knew that I was an entrepreneur, and yet the vehicle that entrepreneurs have are companies. I was all of a sudden without one.
Right. What okay. I was going to ask you about it being a condition, because you talk about that sometimes, right? So what was next? Like, what happened? So you had this major thing, this thing happened to you. How do you pick yourself back up and get going again and figure out what was next?
Yeah. So what happened next was actually, it was 2004. And what happened next was actually the thing that ultimately led me to writing Buy Then Build. And that's that, again, unemployed, MBA, entrepreneur without a company. I knew that there was a way to go out and buy a company. I just didn't really know how to do it, right? And so I just started looking up business brokers in the area. I started meeting with middle market M&A advisors. The investment bankers kind of intimidated me. It looked like I needed a lot of money.
Right.
I just wasn't sure how to do it, but I knew that there was a way. And what I was met with was a really opaque, very fragmented industry where a bunch of brokers by all different kinds of titles had an enormous range in terms of quality. And the inventory that I had access to was full of sort of, rundown bars and laundromats. And one guy tried to sell me a pet cemetery. No kidding.
Oh.
So
it's kind of like that. I was at a dead body removal company.
No, what? What's that?
I almost bought a dead body removal company, so that must have been that same guy, right?
I would have bought that company. That's a great business. Tell me about that. I know you're interviewing me. I want to know about that business. Tell me about this.
Well, he had a patent on a body bag that he sold all over the world, and he had an EBITDA of $3.5 million. He had contracts with the city, the state, and the county. Anytime somebody bit the dust, they picked them up and took them to wherever they were supposed to go. But the job was the cold storage for the weekend that I had to have in my backyard. He had it was a home-based business. And so he had, and literally in his yard, he had this kind of garage, what probably was a garage at some point, was now a walk-in cooler. And I guess during the weekend, the coroner, I don't know.
This is a scene right out of Pulp Fiction.
And I could not say, honey, that pool that we wanted in the backyard, that's cold storage now. Yeah.
what a great example, because, number one, like until we solve for death, like this business will always be in demand. Okay. Number two, you might say like, oh, that doesn't really sound very high tech. It's supply chain management is what it sounds like to me. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, you could turn that into a pretty high tech thing, right?
Pet cemetery, I'm not so sure though. I'm not seeing the same.
It was more like running a lawnmower and getting mailbox money. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, the point is I couldn't find a good resource for just kind of there was no roadmap. There was no no one was really teaching others how to do it, and I was looking for that resource, and so ultimately that is what led me to write Buy Then Build, which took me like 4.5 years to write. But I will say it was one of these things where I hit a point where, after I bought 7 companies and, experienced the startup world and all the rest of it, it just sort of dawned on me that it was like, wow, no one's doing this. And I'm actually on the short list of people allowed to write that book right now. And that's when it kind of hit me.
What, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. I mean, how do you find, because I must have had the same experience and the same track you did. I mean, you look at those business broker lists, and it's just, it's like
intimidating. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm. Thank you for finding my words, because I could not find them, because it just seemed useless. I mean, but I guess it's the place to start. Or do you go to like lawyers and accountants? And I mean, how do you go about it? Because the business is all over the place.
Yeah. What's really cool is that there's been classes that have started at a few universities, University of Chicago, Northwestern, Harvard, Stanford, but about how to go about a search. But what I say is stop. You're already too far ahead. You said you bought a business?
Yeah, we bought a business. And it did come from a broker / attorney. And he actually, I remember a day exactly, we had looked at the dead body removal. We had looked at all kinds of different companies. And I remember him pulling it out of the top of his desk, and he said, I'm going to disown you if you buy this, because this business is, I can't say those words on air. But he basically said, this is a piece of, but I have to show it to you because I'm compelled to. This is my client. And that's the business we bought, because we fell in love with it.
No kidding. Well, hold on. I want to drill into that, but wait a second. I want to back up a little bit. Okay. When you first started meeting with this broker or other brokers, what were the questions that they started asking you? Like, what did they want to know?
They wanted our resume. They wanted our experience. They wanted to know basically who we were and what our intent was, and a bunch of questions that were sort of annoying and demeaning, because I was a business management consultant. I had a lot of money in my pocket, burning a hole in my pocket. Don't know what I have to buy or what. I can fix any of these. I could do any of these.
Well, probably 2 things were going on there. Okay. Probably you, as a first-time buyer in that instance, didn't really know what you were looking for. And you're like, kind of show me the menu, like show me some stuff, date a lot of people, and I'll eventually sort of find the one for me, right? Kind of a thing. Simultaneously,
that's it.
Is that right? Simultaneously, the broker is trying to make sense of like his, sort of menu of inventory, and these buyers kind of coming in saying like, I think I want to do this, right? And so what they do is they tend to, sort of look at your history and then kind of try to match it to, a similar industry, right? Like what they want to know is, what can you afford? And where is your experience? And then I'm going to take that experience and apply it to some kind of future thing, right?
Right.
In other words, if you were in the, record business, I'm going to go find a record store or something for you. Okay.
Right.
It's the wrong way to go, right? We're entrepreneurs. It has nothing to do with industry, and even size is a limiter that can be easily expanded upon. Okay. Right. If you know how to do it. And so the thing is they're actually asking you the wrong questions, in my opinion. And a lot of
I thought so, but
yeah. So, but there's no good way to do it, right? And so the thing is your question was, how do we start a search? Should we go talk to brokers? And I'm going to say, absolutely not. You need to back way up. Okay. What a lot of people don't understand is that when you are looking at a company for sale, the difference between this company today and after you buy it is you and your involvement, and you're the CEO, and you just made the biggest investment of your life, and you're in debt. Okay. So it's like, you need to figure out what it is that you bring to the table. All right. So, a lot of times it's do you have the right mindset? Do you have the right mental buildup and the right, are you savvy enough to do this? Is this something you're really passionate about? Right. Number two, what's your skill set, right? Like, understand what you're good at, what gets you motivated, how you want to spend your day, and ultimately what the growth opportunity is that you're looking for. Ignore industry, even ignore size, okay? Understanding the growth opportunity is what you need to really understand the first time you walk in to any broker. So it's not until the second step that I want you to actually go out and start talking to people and getting upstream.
And what is that? Okay, so you've discovered who you are and what you bring to the table, and figured that part of it out. And that's a process in and of itself, I think, because that's a lot of tough questions. That's a lot of understanding where you want to go and how much you want. What you want, a lifestyle business, or do you want to grow internationally? I mean, yeah, I think those are big. I think those are the things. And I think we had figured that out. I think we knew who we were. We just didn't know what kind of business we wanted.
Let me jump in here. What's interesting though is that when you look at businesses, they don't tell you what the growth opportunity is. Like, you need to know as the entrepreneur. In other words, when you were introduced to this company that you eventually bought, you were told, here is a piece of right. Here is, the broker said, this is not a good one, but you should check it out, right? You saw it. Why did you buy it?
We fell in love. So I'll tell you why we bought it. We went to his business model. He'd make these little toys during the week, and he'd make 300 or 400 of them during the week. And then he would go to the trade shows on the weekend. And that's all he did. He didn't try to get it into retail, didn't try to scale it. For him, it was a hobby and it was a business and he eventually got tired of doing it. He wanted to move up to see his kids up in Canada or something. And so, but he would go to these things. We went twice. We went 2 weekends in a row, and all weekend long, kids were piled up 6 deep all weekend long. He nonstop selling these things.
So they had product market fit.
And
first step of a successful startup, right? Product market fit. Okay, so he had that. Great. Keep going.
But we just saw the possibilities, and more importantly, we saw the happiness and the sort of the fun. And now, I didn't want to sit at a trade show every weekend of my life, but we knew that, okay, if we could get this, if we could scale it, if we could figure out how to produce it and ship it, and all those normal things that you have to figure out, right? And that's what we could do. We knew processes, and we knew how to make those kind of things happen. And so for us, and it made us smile. I mean,
it's absolutely perfect. So you found a business with a product that matched your values, right? Something that you were going to be passionate about,
right?
And then something that you could use your skill set to apply and grow the business, right?
I mean, nothing about the industry.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So that's why we bought it.
Well, the thing is that when most buyers, so most potential buyers, once they start, going out and trying to find a business to buy, it's, the latest statistic is like 90% never actually buy anything, right? So most buyers, so most buyers, when you walk into a broker, right, and say like, hey, I'm looking, right, you appear to them to be a complete waste of time until proven otherwise. Okay. Like, you need to sell the broker on the fact that, like, I'm ready to go, right? And being able to, see what it is you're looking for and make a decision quickly, even though it's your first time down that path, is going to be absolutely key. Okay. Mm-hmm. I met a couple of potential buyers who missed out on an opportunity. Okay. And what they did was they came to talk to me, and they're like, hey, we've been looking for a while, and da-da-da. I asked them a series of questions that ultimately was just taking them through what I call my prep funnel, right? It's just trying to get to, what's your skill set, how you want to spend your time. What happened during the conversation was they ended up looking at each other right at the end and said, we should have bought that company. They were standing in the right company for them. One was a online marketer. The other was a international supply chain manager. Okay. But what they were standing in was a pretty tired looking wine shop. Okay.
Right.
Which at first glance, it's like, okay, this is a tired, like, I don't know, like you're, again, when it's presented to you, you're looking at the history, you're looking at what it is. Okay. Right. They missed the growth opportunity because nothing in the business tells you what the growth opportunity is. You need to apply it. The seller especially isn't going to tell you because they don't know. The reason why most—
they're tired.
Yeah, right. The reason why most entrepreneurs sell their companies is because they start a business. It's a tremendous amount of work to get it to work, first of all. Then it works. Then they grow the company 200%. Then the next year they grow at 200%. Then the next year they grow at 100%. Then the next year they grow at 40%. And then they're like, I don't know what else to do with this, right?
Right.
And like your guy, and I'm working trade shows and I'm just ready to move on to spend time with my daughter or whatever it is, right? So they're looking for a life change because we're entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. And you got to see that and immediately saw the growth opportunity and knew you could take it to the next level.
Well, so I got to the same point in the business too, right? And at some point you say, I'm done. Somebody else gotta see what else they can do with it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Did you sell your business, Rhett?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Great. So you bought and you sold. You had an exit. That's wonderful.
Yeah, a couple of those. Great. What is okay? So I get that aspect of it. What is the opportunity kind of today? Because I kind of feel like there's money out there. There's ways to do this, and I actually completely buy into what you're saying here because I think.
Can we talk about money for a minute?
And not spend all my capital, right? Yeah. Leverage something that's already making money, as you were saying earlier, instead of do what I did originally, which was we spent all of our capital on this business because we couldn't get a loan to buy it. And because it was mainly because of his cash flow and what he was reporting.
Well, there's no hard assets in that business. So, yeah. And what year was it?
That was 2006, 2007.
Yeah, things are very different now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the money thing. Can we do that? So,
absolutely.
Okay, so twice I've spent time trying to raise capital for a startup. Okay, and here's the thing. Number one, it takes months, okay? Usually more than 12, okay? And a lot of times successful startups are still raising after 24 months, okay? I mean, it's an ongoing thing because you need capital to build this infrastructure, okay?
Right.
So it's time consuming, it's hard, you're selling and pitching and, you're selling the dream, which is fun. But, ultimately you're giving away pieces of your company every time that you're bringing in capital just so that you can, build the infrastructure and run the business. Okay.
Right.
Today, the Small Business Administration is lending up to 90% of a business's value based on, its value based on its historical earnings. So, and they'll give you working capital and closing costs and inventory all on top of it. So it's kind of like if, when I first started doing this, people were like, oh, you bought a business, must be nice. You must be like totally loaded. It's like, no. It's
just leveraging.
Yeah. Money cannot be your objection. It cannot be the thing to stop you because if you're like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't get the capital is there. Okay. They will lend you 90% if you want to leverage that much. Okay. That's a whole different conversation, but the capital's there.
Okay. So, SBA.
You own 100% of the company, and you can own 100% of the company.
That's funny because I don't think I've ever met anybody that will successfully use the SBA, but it does happen, I guess.
So the SBA, the SBA has an interesting history, but the thing is the default rate on SBA loans is less than 2%. It's like 1.5%. Okay, so if you kind of look at this just in terms of like I wrote an original chapter that was in Buy Then Build that got removed, and it was all about comparing acquisition entrepreneurship to if you saw that movie Moneyball, right?
Yeah.
Get on base, right? That's all we want. Like, we're not shooting for home runs anymore. We're not going for VC capital. You know, we're simply trying to get our business on base. And I called it, instead of sabermetrics, I called it entremetrics. Okay, and the whole point was focus on getting on base and then be an entrepreneur from there. Okay,
right.
And so what that means is you know, product market fit, existing cash flow, etc. If you look at the success rate of startups, okay, common rule of thumb, I mean, you know what, 10% make it. Something like that.
Yeah,
4%, according to Vern Harnish's research at Gazelles, 4% of companies in the United States ever exceed $1 million in revenue. Okay.
Is it really that low?
Yeah, it's 4%. So it's one of these where, you know, if you are one of the 10% that make it, now there's like a 96% chance that you don't ever exceed $1 million in revenue. Okay. So with loans from the SBA, you can buy one of the largest 4% of companies in the United States for a capital injection with like very close to the average down payment of a home in America. So I'm not suggesting that people should go buy a company instead of a business, but maybe some people should. Yeah. Entrepreneurs were couch surfing anyway, aren't we? And the default rate of these things is so low, right? Historically. I mean, so it's one of these where the default rate of startups is like very few make it, right? Based on the math, it's gonna be less than 1%. And then the reverse is true for acquisition entrepreneurship.
So what is, that seems to me to be an opportunity in terms of acquisition, right? If I own a company, you know, think about the impact of like buying another company and leveraging its resources. I mean, we never really thought about that when we were operating, but what you're just saying now actually makes a lot of sense.
So growing through acquisition is an amazing opportunity. So if you look at the ROI, the return on investment of buying a company with high leverage, if you choose to do that, the ROI is simply unparalleled. Okay, for people that are familiar with like real estate investing, you know, the concept is, okay, I'm going to buy this building, and you know, a certain percentage of it will be leverage from the bank, and the tenant is going to pay up that equity so that I've got equity buildup and I gain value, right? Right. Imagine if you could put 10% down on a business, grow the business. You can't grow a building. It's external forces, right? Right. Grow the business and enjoy that equity buildup. When you grow through acquisition, it's one of these where you don't actually need the income from that second or third or fourth or fifth business. You're buying it for strategic reasons, right? And so your equity buildup is accelerated and even faster. But when you grow through acquisition, the thing that changes is that you get to buy it for a specific infrastructure, right? Like, there's a lot of different reasons you might acquire. One might be just additional growth. I had a business and I bought another business, and we grew 20% in a single day just on closing, right?
Really?
So if you grow an additional 10% over the next 12 months organically, it's just an accelerate. I mean, it's an accelerator for growth, right? And you look at some of the best, like, iconoclastic entrepreneurs today. Like, you look at Jeff Bezos, right? Founder of Amazon. And what he's done is he bought the Washington Post, and then he bought, you know, Whole Foods, right? So the thing is that at some level, the only way to continue growing that fast is through acquisition. But the truth is that every individual today is going to be empowered to be able to grow through those same forces. That's
incredible. Are there other opportunities out there that we're missing? Like, it seems to me like, okay.
Let me say it like this.
Kind of blows my mind because let
me say it like this. Okay, so this is what you've got right now happening. Okay, baby boomers own more businesses than any other generation in the history of mankind. Okay, period. All right, they are retiring at an insane rate. Today, there's 9,000 baby boomers retiring. every single day. Okay, that's accelerating. So by 2023, they're retiring at 11,000 per day, and that's continuing to accelerate all the way to 2028 approximately. Okay, there is $10 trillion in business assets that needs to change hands from the baby boomers.
How many zeros is that? 9 or something?
Yeah, but the point is that when these companies were built and they met that product market fit and they built their infrastructure and gotten their customer base, the internet wasn't a thing. All of these businesses are now being sold at a time where online marketing has become, so accessible to everybody, right? Today, we're doing this on LinkedIn Live, okay? 50 years ago, it was called NBC or whatever. I mean, there's 5 channels, right? And it was,
in some places,
right?
ABC, CBS, NBC, but
right. So you've got this massive scaling opportunity with online marketing. You've got the infrastructure of the baby boomer retiring, and then you've got, for the first time ever, this huge access to capital from the Small Business Administration. So the confluence of those 3 things coming together is going to be the single greatest opportunity of our generation, of our lifetime. That
blows my mind. I think I'll have to go out and start looking at the listings again. Okay, so do you focus on, and I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to get your thought. High growth companies, slow growth companies.
Great. Okay, great question.
If you're looking today, what is your criteria for something that you'd be interested in?
Okay.
And
yeah. Okay. So 2 things are coming to mind here. One, I want to talk for a minute about online marketplaces. Is that okay? Can I
yeah. No, please. Yeah.
In other words, you're asking the right questions, which is, how do I know, where do I go and how do I know what I'm looking for and all these types of things. But I think the biggest mistake that potential acquisition entrepreneurs do is it's really simple to sort of go to these online marketplaces like, Biz Buy Sell and just start like looking through inventory. And what I want to highlight is, I think it's I often make an analogy to these online job search sites like Monster, Career Builder. So Rhett, have you ever gotten a job off of one of these online job sites?
No.
Do you know anybody who's ever gotten, I'm going on a limb here, I don't know anybody, and I've I'm an entrepreneur. There's many times in my life where I've been unemployed. Okay, me and no one I know has ever gotten a job off of these things.
I'm not sure you want to, but that
Well, the point is that when you are looking for a business, when you go to these sort of open marketplace websites, it's kind of analogous to that. Okay, that's not how you get a job. You get a job by networking and finding someone that is working there and whatever. And so the thing is when you're looking for a business, you need to get beyond that and get upstream. And this is why public online marketplaces kind of fall to the lowest common denominator. Okay, if there happens to be a bad business that nobody wants, a piece of junk, as you were saying, it is definitely going to find its way onto these open marketplaces. Okay,
right.
And as a result, what that means is that all of the bad companies are going to kind of be there for sure. It does not mean that every company on these sites is bad. It just means that when it's your first time, you don't know what you're looking for, you haven't, it's just looking at like a snapshot and you can't figure out really what you're looking at. You need to get past it. Spend 15 minutes, understand what's kind of out there, but move on. You're not going to find your business there. Trust me. Okay. And maybe this is where I was going. Your question was, what's sort of so I've put together what I call the AE matrix, right? And it's kind of the 4 profiles of acquisition opportunities. I talk to all kinds of people that say like, Walker, I'm looking for the same thing everybody else is, which is $1 million in EBITDA in a manufacturing company that is just kind of, tired and beat up and needs to be turned around. Well, not everybody is actually looking for that, but there's a group of people looking for that. Okay. The other things are, so these 4 quadrants are, eternally profitable. So it's going to be something with, it's eternally profitable is sort of like, I'm going to minimize risk as much as possible. I want something like a snowplow company or a corporate window washing company or Dead body removal company, something where there's no technological innovation coming in and disrupt it, like just something we need. Okay. But you also kind of limit your upside when you buy an enduringly profitable kind of business. So it eliminates risk, eliminates upside. Then you've got sort of the turnaround, which we've kind of touched on, right? You jump in, bring operational efficiencies and make more out of what's already there. You've got high growth companies, which are growing exceedingly quickly. And so they appear to be, really desirable, but they tend to go for multiples that are so high that you want to be positive that you have the skill set to be able to keep that going, or else you're going to end up in a situation where you potentially overpay. Okay.
Right.
But they tend to be very easy to scale businesses, really fun, really attractive, sexy. Right. And then there's something that I call platform companies. And a platform company is, the company that is specific to you, that, the growth opportunity is there, but it matches your skill set and you can come in and bring that company to the next level. Right.
Right. Okay. What mistakes do people make when they go through this process? What questions are they missing? When they buy a company, what mistakes? What are the common mistakes people make?
I think that we tend to let's do it like this. Let's look at this through a startup lens. Okay. When you are starting a company from scratch, you really have to kind of identify the pain that your product is solving, and you have to really think about your placement in the space and who your competition is. Okay, I think that these are questions that drop to the bottom pretty easily when you're looking at a company. You start to look at it kind of in a silo, because you start to look at this thing and say like, oh wow, okay, so I can make whatever, pick a number, $400,000 a year running this business, like just doing it like this because that's what it's been making. Okay, good, right? But like you need to really, I think the place that people don't go as aggressively is to really understand the competition in the marketplace and what that's going to mean. One of the things that I do, I always run through like Porter's 5 forces, right? If you're familiar with that model, right? It's basically, it just sort of looks at the suppliers, the competition, who the customers are, the threat of new entrants, and one that's not coming right off the top of my head. I'll think of it, but this is live, so I don't want to. The point is use those kinds of tools that are out there, because I think that they'll really help you think strategically about that. I think the biggest.
Do you cover that in the because you've created a CEO and 6 months to CEO class.
6 months CEO. Yeah.
You cover that part of it in there?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, the purpose of 6 months to CEO is, if Buy Then Build was the textbook, I tried to make the college seminar, right? Like this is something that's going to take months. And so, you kind of need that ongoing place to go back to. And so it's a lot of, it goes beyond the book. About 90% of the information is in the book. Okay. I try to put it all in there. And then just as I started building the course, it was like, oh, there's a lot more here. There's worksheets, there's a ton of interviews, there's legal docs, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah.
Where can they take the class?
If you go to buythenbuild.com, you can find it pretty easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we've got to get going. You've got a schedule to keep an eye, and you helped me out here by coming back today.
Yeah.
What's the one takeaway from the book?
Wow.
If you had to give one takeaway.
The biggest takeaway of the book is, frankly, that acquisition entrepreneurship kind of, is a new lens on how we've been thinking about entrepreneurship and basically how to do it. There's an increased margin of safety with acquisition entrepreneurship. There's a huge amount of inventory out there. And if you are an entrepreneur and need a vehicle, this is, for most people, the best way to go about it, period. And so the book is why and how.
And where can they get it? Where can they get
buy it on Amazon. Buy it on Amazon.
Buy it on, okay. All right. And so the book is called Buy Then Build. And Walker, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun. I do want to have you back one day. I want to talk, really get into the nitty gritty of the questions to ask, and maybe go through the book a little more in detail about the how of buying the business. We kind of touched on the services. We touched on the opportunity today, which was really important. But I want to get into sort of nitty gritty one day, because I think that.
Can I say one more thing? Because it took me a while to think of this, but you asked the question, like, what's the number one mistake people make?
Yeah.
And it's right here. The thing is that first time buyers always think that sellers are selling their companies because, there's some terrible disaster right around the corner, right? Like they're going to unload it. More often than not. I mean, it's not like those people don't exist, but the thing is I've heard it said that, before the transaction, the buyer has, none of the knowledge and all of the money, and the seller has all of the knowledge and none of the money. And then after the transaction, the buyer has no money and no knowledge, and the seller has all the money and all the knowledge, right? So they're ultimately trying to manage that risk, right? I get it. It makes perfect sense. Figure it out. What are your risks going to be? Make sure you can handle them. But I think by and large, that is so rare. And I think that people want to move on, not only because of things like retirement or death or disability, but also because we're entrepreneurs. And just like how, your guy was ready to move on to the next thing and you were ready to move on to the next thing, entrepreneurs are genuine people, and we like to build and add value and kind of move on and keep doing it. So that's the only thing I want to throw out there.
That's a great way to conclude it, because I think that's truth, right? I think that's 90% of the time. I think that's probably truth.
I agree.
Thank you so much, man.
Right, thank you. It was great.
All right, guys. And this has been the Power Lunch on LinkedIn Live. And join us every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we'll bring you people like Walker, who just sort of enlightened us about acquisition